This is a silly video idea that came to me in the shower, a gift bestowed upon my brain by a single semi-intelligent thought. Can you beat Super Monkey Ball 2 without holding right? If you know any of my speedruns or almost really anything I have online, you'll know that I play this game. A lot. I've speedrun the story mode of this game in under 30 minutes. I have plenty of good individual level runs, or ILs for short. I'll talk about ILs more in this video, so that's good to know. And even some TASes. This challenge was a new idea I had so I could spice up the game and play it in a way I hadn't seen done before. Without further ado, the rules. The premise is simple. No rightwards input of any kind. Up and right, down and right, everything in between. That entire side of my joystick will remain unused. How's this gonna work? How am I going to stop myself from breaking the rules by accident? Well, I simply took my controller and bound it through the config settings in Dolphin. Then I simply deleted the keybind for inputting anything on the right. As you can see, Dolphin's built-in input direction is not tracking anything to the right. The goal? Story mode completion. I will attempt this challenge with 0 slowdown or save states. If the situation calls for it, I might use an in-game pausing as a last resort. I'm also just gonna outright ban stage skipping. There's a glitch that lets you skip stages with a little bit of menuing, and you can technically skip every stage except simple, but that would make this video an absolute snooze fest. This is just me, the game, and the controller that doesn't respond quite right. Let's get left into the challenge.
Main game. Story mode.
Our first problem seems to arrive simply from starting a new file. The game asks you to name a file, and the end is way on that other side over there. There are a couple of ways to get around this, luckily. The game prompts you to start a file automatically once you reach the character limit, or, as I did here, you can also just press the start button to get the same prompt. Sadly, I couldn't make a funny file name for the challenge because I couldn't get to any of the letters other than like A, K, and one other one I forget already. But that's just the way these things go, I guess. Simple was just that. Simple. It's literally a straight line. Hollow had no substance. There is a quick point to make here. As you can see, in many of these levels, if we need to go the other left in any way, we either have to hit something, usually a wall, or turn a full 270 degrees to the left, which ends up being the correct turn. Obviously, we won't always have something to hit, so turning all the way around will be the main form of adjusting that way. No problems otherwise here. Bumpy went smoothly. Switches, it didn't change anything. The solution on conveyors was communicated well, by a goal sitting right in front of me. Floaters was squared up really quick. Okay, it wasn't really that quick. Slopes was actually more difficult than the stages before it. There goes my witty pun for this stage. Sliders was boring and not at all fun like a real slide. I couldn't even do any skips on it because all the skips sent you too far to the left if you couldn't adjust anywhere. Ugh! Spinning top didn't make my head spin. And here we are. If you've played this game for any amount of time, you know what's coming. In my opinion, Curve Bridge is an unreasonable difficulty spike in World 1. This stage to me is the hardest stage until World 4 casually. It makes you turn not left 3 times. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem, until we see the fun thing called the timer. That topped off with the fact that the ending of this stage runs on cycles, so we have to reach the end by the time of the last possible cycle. That, topped with the fact that the ending is one straight line we have to either line up for properly or take a turnaround to adjust over for. Realistically, this isn't too big of a problem, but it does highlight a couple of potentially hard obstacles. Banks was easy money. Eaton floor was a piece of cake. Hoppers funneled me to the goal. This one needed 2 whole inputs. That's one more than conveyors. Coaster is simple and guides you the entire way. Just kidding, I did the speedrun strat like a boss. Bumpy check didn't check my skill level at all. The hardest stage in our world 2 was honestly swell. Never seen a challenge where swell poses more of a threat before, so that's a first. Basically, just had to line up and hope you hit the goal without going too far to the left. The banked slope was too much to be able to turn around on, so I couldn't just do that in the middle of the piece of bacon. Surely that won't be a problem again. Gravity slider had no weight to it. The only weight was me holding straight up on my joystick for 15 whole seconds before going to this super difficult goal. Editor guy here. It's 19. Inchworms gave me a mile. Totalitarianism was crushed under my pauseless authority. I did the speedrun strat, it was funny. Alternative had one clear path forward. Organic form had no artificial difficulty. Reversible gear did not turn any gears in my brain. World 3 has a stage that many casuals and speedrunners are afraid of. That's left. It's stepping stones. Just kidding. Stepping stones was a walk in the park. Here we are. Dribbles. This is the hard stage. My initial reaction was to try to pull off a skip. This was no easy feat. Running into the wall and lining up could position you well enough to potentially get one of the viable hits that can send you towards the goal. I threw myself at this for a while, and while before long, I did it! I gave up. This is so mind-numbing to go for, even when you have all your inputs available to you, and I just couldn't see it happening anytime soon. That's when I turned to plan B, doing the stage the intended way. If you thought curve bridge turns were tough, oh boy, this one's an order of magnitude more difficult. The turns here were super specific, and I had to do it fast. I couldn't make too many turnarounds, so I just had to nail precise angles across the octagon shapes before the dribbles hit me off the stage. This stage took longer than all the stages before it combined, and it was honestly actually really fun. Another thing to point out here is that when you hit something, or in this case clip something, and it makes you go a little bit to the left, you can hold straight down on the joystick, and it will turn redacted for you, and you can adjust your angle like that. This situation is fairly niche and not that useful, but it did show up in a fun way here, and it kind of actually helped a little bit. If you see the camera turn, not left, just know that it's that, and I'm not cheating or anything. Anyways, with a bit of patience, I was able to clear this with not too much difficulty. Heading past Dribbles, URL is slightly notable, as I literally just did a previously labbed out blindfolded strategy. This is a cool little trick I think is worth showing off. Mad Rings could never make me angry. Curvy options had a straightforward answer. Twister was not puzzling in the slightest. Downhill looks like it could be a little problematic, but actually the top of the walls just slope slightly outward, so it's pretty easy to just go onto the wall on the third left side and fall off at the right time and go dunk in the goal. Junction gave me the green light. I didn't even get a ticket on this one. Pro Skaters was amateurish. Giant Comb, I got this really funny forward clip I thought was cool. Even that can't save my hairline. Beehive was super sweet. Dynamic Maze, it didn't move me much. Triangle Holes, did anyone actually beat this stage casually in any other way than just holding up? Like seriously, taking this level slow is actually harder than any other stage in this game. They had to have made it with that in mind. My dog is drinking very loudly next to my setup. Launchers might seem like it could be a problem at a glance, but actually I realized it was totally possible to do this intermediate speedrun strat. I'm bad and couldn't dunk without the 3 o'clock direction. but getting up to the top was quite simple with this method. Randomizer gave me good luck. Coin slots is another neutral to hold up. I don't want to wait 3 seconds at the start, so I improvised a version of the speedrun strat and got it in a couple attempts. This one's pretty complex. And then, there was Seesaw bridges. This stage poses a very clear problem. The problem is not that there are a bunch of look left and your hand doesn't make an L turns. No. The problem is the seesaws. Seesaws that are long enough will inevitably send you one way or the other, and we can only adjust in one direction. Combine this with the fact that there are obstacles directly in the middle of the seesaws, and this becomes a problem real fast. The first seesaw is actually doable by letting the tilt of the seesaw angle you 3 pi over 2 after the second cylinder. The second seesaw is where the problem starts. It looks maybe possible but very difficult. The end of the saw is all the way on the left, which we can get to, but then I couldn't get above the ledge because the seesaw was tilting me to the left. All this is already before a very impossible looking ending seesaw, so you have to move so far over that it just seems like the seesaw tilt is going to shoot you off the edge before you can recover. To be honest, I didn't even try this for very long before I determined that it would be either completely above my capabilities or just totally impossible. Instead, I resorted to something that I know works. You see, there's this fun glitch you may not know about if you aren't in some kind of monkey ball online space that we call the view stage glitch. In short, in the middle of an attempt, you can pause the game, then you can press view stage. Normally, all animations and everything run in here, and moving parts don't change at all when you unpause. All the cycles are in the same spots and everything. But seesaws are special. For whatever silly coding reason, seesaws reflect their current state when in view stage. They then act as if there is no weight on them and slowly begin returning to being level. Now when you unpause, the seesaw teleports to the position you left it when it was in view stage, and it gets there in a single frame. We can abuse this to run in a straight line along the edges of seesaws. The annoying part about this is when the seesaw teleports, it's very easy for us to just clip right through the bottom of it. Because of this, we have to pause frequently and wait on view stage for a while to ensure that we don't just fall to I's doom. After a few annoying attempts that took like 5 minutes each, this wasn't too much of a big deal to knock off the chopping block. Arthropod literally has a single frame pause strat that uses no silly, useless directions, so it was a breeze. A spider-filled one, probably. I did it pauseless, of course. Heading left off into World 5, Wormhole shows us what could be a potential problem later on. But probably not, right? There's a long, relatively thin wire to the end of the level, and it is not easy to turn all the way around on a wire without all your movement directions. Lining up for a long wire like this could be a problem in the future. But this one actually wasn't that bad. I actually managed to get a lineup that took me the entire way. Freefall is just that. Free. I got a bit of the casual gaming experience on Melting Pot. I time overed a couple times before actually getting in the goal. Mad Shuffle initially scared me until I realized I could just press the slow button and wait for a good time to go, and then I could just go left when it swapped, and that was it. Bead Screen didn't leave me on red. Jump Machine was hardly even a bump. I was glad I chose to keep the left direction after seeing zigzag slopes. I did the zigs, and it gave me the zags. I have honestly no idea what I would have done if I'd have chosen the other direction for this challenge. I want to talk about game design here for a moment. Who thought it was a good idea to make you run for almost 10 full seconds before even starting the level? Who playtested this and went, yeah, that's peak level design. Surely it can't get better. I love just running for 10 straight seconds every time I try to play the level. Tower is certainly a level design choice. I wish some guy named James would teach me how to skip this one. Toggle also looked scary, but a simple wait for a good cycle while lining up was all it took to toggle this stage to complete. Fluctuation did not fluctuate anything in terms of World 5 difficulty. World 6 started off more funny than anything. Combination took a little bit just because it was so awkward to move around, but in the end, I cracked it open. Punched seesaws was easy. I didn't need to punch anything. Opera made me sing songs of shock and fear. Seriously, look at this luck-based insane attempt I got really rather quickly. Realistically, it's not too hard to do the stage entirely on one side and turn around at every intersection, but this is way cooler. Brandish showed me no harm, and the goal came right to me. Tears is a long, continuous, impossible direction of turn. Great. However, this stage, for some lucky reason, is tilted inwards, allowing us to basically just use up and neutral to win just using the bottom wire. As far as difficulty, I give this one a D tier. Cliffs was literally just the speedrun strat. No need to make a mountain out of a molehill. Narrow peaks had a wide margin of error. 'Twas not peak difficulty. Also, I didn't even need any directions. Detour kept me on track. Switch Inferno was kind of really embarrassing. I have not played base game stages for so long that I forgot which buttons were the correct ones. Specifically which two, because there are really only two buttons that people ever use. Either way, oops. Folders did not make me fold. Spiral Bridge looked difficult at first, but the path was paved out in front of me. Wavy option flowed nicely. Obstacle posed no problem. Domino, it really didn't hit hard. Sieve? Civ? Who says what now? I'm gonna say Civ. Civ actually did filter through as a difficult stage. The difficulty comes in the long wire at the end. As I mentioned on Wormhole, these long wires could pose a threat. Overall, it wasn't too bad, but I did have to time turning around where I wouldn't get hit by the big obstacle thing. What do you even call that obstacle? I'm gonna call it a smacker. I was not going to be able to line up like perfectly in the middle of it for that long at all, so I had to take a few turnarounds here before I went to the goal. Flock was making me count sheep. This stage is so boring. Double Spiral is another stage where I was so happy I chose to keep left. I did not plan for this when picking which direction for this challenge. I just went with pure vibes. I proved I was better than Hierarchy. 8 bracelets was easy to connect the dots. Quick turn required no turns at all. This is another one where they had to have just planned this, right? What are the chances that just holding up beats a stage with this many moving parts directly in your path? Pistons was as easy as driving a car. Do people consider that easy? I feel like it is, but also I've been driving for at least an hour every day for the past 3 years, so I have a lot of practice. Maybe that's similar here? Lots of people would not find this dunk easy, but with my experience, I find it pretty easy. Am I getting too philosophical? This has gone on for long enough. Soft cream. No comment. Momentum really did keep my momentum. Entangled Path showed me the way. I also beat it in the intro of this video, so you don't get to see it again. So here's where I'll put the replay of Seesaw Bridges. Doesn't it look incredibly silly? You can much more easily see what I meant when I said the seesaw teleports in one frame in the replay. Pretty cool, huh? Anyway, Totter still couldn't tilt me. Vortex couldn't pull me in. And then came Warp. Oh boy. Warp could definitely tilt me and pull me in and beat me up and not only take my lunch money, but also my dinner money. This was by far and away the most annoying, difficult, and tedious stage so far. Not even close. I'm sure at a glance you could see why warp is a problem. The whole gimmick of this stage is holding up against the slope as you go past, allowing you to barely stay on. And of course, for what seemed like the first time, picking this specific challenge and not the other direction seems much harder. It is completely impossible to turn around and make progress on a slope this steep, quite like I mentioned on Swell. It did end up being a huge problem. Unlike Swell, full speeding it and praying is not a good option at all. Trying to take it slowly starts to induce a level of dread. It is totally impossible to take the intended route with my current limitations. I know at this point I have to skip the slopes somehow. There are two potential ways this can happen. One, I skip one section at a time. This would mean skipping the first slope by clipping the edge here and getting a fairly lenient bumper hit to cross the rest of the gap on either of these two bumpers. Then I would have to slow down, completing the second one normally by using the beautiful leftwards inputs I have access to, and then immediately skipping the last one. There is one major problem with that. Skipping the last section when you don't have as much speed is harder than chugging a full can of bubbly. You have to clip here, very similarly to the first section, but because of the lower speed you have, you would need to get really precise hits on 2 or even 3 of these bumpers here before being able to maybe still be in a decent spot to get to the goal. The first skip is not that hard to get for a gamer such as myself, but it does still filter through a lot of attempts, making the obscenely difficult ending just that much more grueling. Then there's option 2. Try to carry speed and skip the whole level at once. This is just what the IL does, so obviously it's possible. That is, except for the fact that I can't move in the positive X direction. Getting a bumper hit good enough off the first section to make it to the second one with enough speed and height to get a favorable bounce is hard enough. Now, getting that situation without being able to hold the direction that I need to go is so much worse. Now, after that extremely lucky bounce, you either have to get a second clip here followed immediately by another really good bumper hit, or get an insane bumper hit at the start, and another insane one on this bumper here. After those sequences, you still need to be able to clip on the third long edge in just the right way to not only get over the bumpers, but also be in a good angle to get towards the goal without still hitting the bumpers. I spent many hours attempting either one of these. I would normally go for option 1, but if the bumper hits were really good, I would go for option 2. And finally, after about 8 hours, I gave up on this. I was not strong enough. It is most definitely possible to do it this way. It's just so much effort, and this is the kind of thing you just throw yourself at and hope a bounce works. There really wasn't any skill expression at all. Is this it? Is this where I throw in the towel and lose the challenge? Well, not yet. I still have the nuclear option. The option I mentioned at the very start of the video that I would try to avoid, but use as a last resort. Well, this seems worthy of a last resort. Pausing. Pause cheating. But simply deciding to pause was not the end of the road here. Pausing does not simply immediately beat a stage. I decided, as I deemed in a spirit for this challenge run, to not use save states of any kind. So, first things first, let's head over to the speedrun pause strat sheet, and... Every frame tree here uses a forbidden input as the third input of the level. This gave me essentially no leads. Pausing wasn't necessarily the easy out I thought it might have been. I didn't even use the frame sheet at all because all the setups needed that input for them to work. So, I did what any rational person would do. I spent well over an hour pausing without save states because those are banned and I'm not breaking my rules, all to find a single set of frame-perfect inputs to complete this for me. I already have experience finding frames on this stage in particular, including a few frames on the official sheet, and a few cool backups that aren't on there either, even though I think one of them should be. All that to say, it took over an hour despite not only having experience finding frames in general, but on this very stage as well. This is what I ended up finding. At the start, I held up until 5783, and then up left until 5720. I then held up until 5676, then let go of the joystick entirely, or held neutral, until 5671, just 3 frames later. After that, I held up until 5580, up left until 5548, and then up until 5310. That is a full 7-frame pause strat I had to brute force from the very start every single time. After pausing on 5310, I held up left all the way until the very last clip, and that moment I held up. While yes, you can pause beforehand and buffer down to the exact frame you're looking for, doing this 7 times in a row is still fairly difficult, especially since this game runs at 60 frames per second. This wasn't my ideal way of going forward, and if someone wants to do this pauseless, feel free. I'm willing to waste some of my life on this, but I didn't want to spend potentially dozens of hours on this stage for this silly challenge, just to do it in the most Puritan way possible. Now, the astute among you may have noticed that my banana account and score have changed. I forgot to save. That's it. I lost the save file because I forgot to save, and I wasn't using any cheater save states. I wanted a nice clean story mode playthrough, so I had to get back there. It's nearly impossible to emulate the same score in a story mode run, so I didn't bother wasting hours trying to. Now that that's done with, I was ready to face whatever challenges were ahead. Trampolines was just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Swing Shaft treated me as well as it did to Peter in GDQ. Linear Seesaws was also incredibly straightforward. Starting off with a tasty skip, World 9 feels like it's gonna fly by. Nothing can stop me after the atrocities on Warp. Then, I opened Cross Floors. I kid you not, a slight feeling of dread passed over me when I first saw this in my stage select screen. No amount of switching direction or even pausing would help me here. You need to switch momentum over the floors, or get clips to skip the floors, both of which seem to require a restricted input. This stage is super narrow, and there aren't any bumpers or anything to help us cheese the stage in some way. These floors must be dealt with. There is simply no way around them. Pause strats wouldn't even help if you have no idea how to even move forward through this. With Warp, there was a plan that was just nearly impossible to execute. Here we have something that is just so unlike anything I've seen before. I don't know of any trick, frames, or otherwise that would be at all transferable to this challenge. The casual way of beating the stage is once again totally impossible, and the IL skip just does not seem possible either. The clips you need most certainly need an untimely direction. I had such a brief period of respite before being flung right back into this fire. Was this game about to rip the joy of my Warp victory away from me this quickly? It was really looking like it. Then I had a revelation. What if I did something in between casually beating the stage and skipping it? So here's the idea. Every time the platforms face in a way that I could actually clear them, I clip before that one. This clip has to be just in the good sweet spot where I need enough height to make the landing give you enough momentum to the east to clear the next floor by holding up, but also enough distance to actually get you to the next panel after landing on the one you clipped on. A clip that's too low doesn't get you enough sideways momentum after you land, and a clip that's too chunky doesn't get you enough speed. When you get a good clip, you have to adjust in such a way that you land right near the end of a panel, as well as low enough down on it so the momentum from its slope carries you through the normally impossible panel. Essentially, you have to land right near the intersection of the two panels, while also not hitting the wall of the panel in front of you. Now take that precise sequence of movement and do it 4 times. Yup, this is a skill-based, luck-based, slight endurance test now. Honestly, once I found out how to actually clear this, it was pretty fun. Put in enough elbow grease and this stage is fairly doable. Honestly, it looked way more impossible than Warp at first, so I was super happy when I found not just a solution, but a fun one. No need to get annoyed or cross. Spinning saw could not cut my progress. Chip pipes could not contain me. Flat maze was solved. This skip is still super easy. Guillotine, however, nearly took on its namesake. My goodness, this level gave me some grief. The regular path is one long continuous turn. It's like I'm in a curb lane the whole time, but not if you're British, I guess. I tried for a little bit to brute force it, but the amount that it curves is just enough to not really let you climb the first ramp on said path. Trying this was immediately seeming nigh impossible, because I couldn't even climb the first ramp, so I quickly swapped to the other way I know of beating the stage. The speedrun/IL skip. This skip basically solves all the problems of the slow path. There's just one glaring flaw. I've never seen a setup, paused or not, that does not use a 90% dominant input. This poses some problems. Avoiding those inputs means our angle into this big slapper is never anywhere near as good as it otherwise would be. Nothing I did seemed to even remotely get close to getting there. After about 20 or so minutes of trying to get the same cycle as I'm always used to, I simply realized that I just need to slow down. Or in this case, take some extra time to set myself up, even if it means hitting a different cycle than every other skip I've seen here, like ever. I ended up lining up the straightest line I could before the clip, and this made me zorp like 3/4 of the time, but after the clip, once I hit the blade, I held up left immediately to try to correct the angle to the goal. After enough tries, I managed to hit it with this cool little goalpost rip. I'm just not gonna catch a break late in this game, am I? Corkscrew gave me an opening. Orbiters didn't nearly have the gravity that the other stages held. Twin Basin was too easy. Air hockey was a layup, I mean, epic one-timer or something. Training was like wheels on a bike. I'm not sure what that means. Gimmick looked like the timer could be a problem, but I moved too fast. I actually used a cool little clip after falling to redirect myself before I knew that the timer was so lenient. My first attempt that made it up to the ending slope was the one that I beat the stage with. I barely lined up well enough to get up said slope, and I had way more time left than I was expecting afterwards. Mountain was not even a roadblock. Disorder brought order into the challenge. 3D maze may make many monkeys murmur, but many more monkeys move mundanely, making minor mazes meaningless. Labyrinth was solved quite easily. Postmodern was dumb. Stairs in Ball Game was somehow made worse. All I needed to do was really make sure my angle holding up still brought me in a way where I could still kind of go back and forth. This still sucked to play and was probably my second least favorite experience here, even though it wasn't that hard. Stage stinks. Revolution had a revelation. Invisible was funky. I realized that the IL setup for it doesn't actually use any silly inputs at all. I tried doing a full skip for a little bit, but then just settled with skipping the first few turns and doing the rest slowly. This really wasn't that hard. And just like that, we're on the final stage. Created by. It was easy. No sugarcoating it. World 10 was a lot easier than World 8 or World 9 in this challenge, and that was not what I was expecting going in. So anyways, yes, it is possible to beat Super Monkey Ball 2 without the direction I've been avoiding saying since the intro. It's in the title, just read it yourself. This is my first dive into post-commentary, and as I'm editing it, I can tell things I should do better. I'd like to make more videos for funny ideas that I have, so if you like this, then don't forget, to eat enough food for today. Here's a picture of a sandwich. Okay, bye.